Hello guys, so the video is today who am I? And I'm gonna take myself a lot of time because that's a loaded question, who am I? So what is Awakening Camp? To get a little bit more deeper into this and who am I? And I'm gonna first say who am I so it leads into the idea of the Awakening Camp. So first of all, welcome to the Awakening Camp. So let's start. I'm originally from Prague, from Czech Republic, and I am an early internet pioneer. For example, the I did the first techno music live stream on the internet, like the first one ever. I built the first business network ever on the internet before LinkedIn and Xing existed. I built one of the first search engines on the internet. That was all in the 90s. I built one of the first free email and free homepage providers in the world. If anybody's a little bit older, they probably know GeoCities, and I built something similar to that, or Hotmail. Then I did a couple of these things, more than just one. I had the largest South American dating website at a certain moment in time, way back then. And so I came from kind of almost like a technical background. I learned everything by myself. I never went to school for these things. I just learned on my own 7 programming languages. And that's interesting because I used to be much of an introvert. So I still kind of am, if you think about it energetically, because I need a lot of space for myself in a certain way. I'm gonna explain it. So I'm an HSP, which is highly sensitive person, and I'm so highly sensitive to surroundings that I can feel like feng shui. For example, for me it's very difficult to be above water. So if underground is water or just below myself, me is water, I feel like a certain sense of vibration. Or for example, when I sleep next to people who have a lot of trauma, I get nightmares. If one of the worst places that I've been to was a church, an abandoned church in Spain. I had brutal nightmares next to it. And on the contrary, the best places I sleep are very dry places, very flat places with completely in natural parks where nobody's next to me. So for example, I was near Huesca, in Huesca, Spain, or near in the Valencia region comunidad. Then in France near Lourdes, I was those like very very tranquil places in nature, if trees are around. And the trees also gives kind of like an energetic protection. So I'm an HSP also. I've been always an HSP, and when I was super young, for example, I would make a lot of like bonfires. So I would be outside making bonfires on my own or with friends. Those are great memories. And then I would stare into kind of the fire for hours. The joke was either I'm gonna be a fireman or I'm gonna be someone who lays fires, like a fire starter. So yeah, and I hated school. I absolutely hated school. I'm a little bit anti-authoritarian, and in a way also, what is it called? Libertarian, but I'm also kind of like what's that word with a kind of like the people who don't like to live in this like strict matrix system. And I've never liked this, even as a child. So when I was 11 years old, I already thought about questions like, what is this universe? What is all of this? And nowadays I can read soul plans and soul missions, and so I can also reflect on my own soul plan and soul mission, and we can talk about that a little bit later, but that's one of the things that I can do. And so it's interesting to observe my own soul mission and soul plan in life as I went through things. And interestingly enough, I'm not the type of guy who is like the CEO person, which is like the person who is kind of in executive function doing high level kind of management tasks. I'm more like the introverted, where I like to figure out difficult problems. And my math teacher always says, my math teacher back then and my art teacher said both I have tremendous talent, one for art and one for mathematical things, or statistical, advanced statistics and that kind of thing. So those were my like school exceptions. In other things I was really bad. And when I was younger, I was like super thin. I weighed like 55 kilos, and I never thought about it because it wasn't like a problem or something. It just was, I never thought about eating or something, and I had good energy, was doing a lot of sports, so there was no issues there. It was just like I was just thin. And I studied in Sevilla also, and I saw a photo of me with a good friend in Sevilla back then. I was really kind of thin. I was like, wow, okay. And one thing is kind of sad almost, that I didn't have a girlfriend until like 27, when I was 27. Well, my first kind of kiss was with 24, and then kind of, no, sorry, I have to retract. My first kiss was with 24, and I had like a semi relation. Well, it was a relationship. I would have to go deeper into it. It was kind of like a short term relationship when I was 24. But I was so upset about not having a relationship or a girl while everyone else had one when we were younger. So I started working out a lot, and I gained like a lot of muscles. So I went from 55 kilo to 66 kilo with just packed with muscles. And then immediately I got a girlfriend. And that was kind of sad because it showed how superficial people are in a lot of ways. Like, I bet if I hadn't done that, I would probably be still a virgin. So that was an interesting experience. That was kind of my first negative experience with the opposite sex back then. Yeah, and I used to have only guy friends. I had a lot of guy friends. I never had girlfriends, like female friends, until that moment. So and that experience wasn't, when I was 24, wasn't so positive. So because the girl was just trying to get pregnant, which I didn't know at that time, so she would even flirt like with others, and so eventually she got pregnant by some dude, which wasn't even together with or wasn't in love with. But she was older than me, so she already wanted to get pregnant. So I'm just talking random interesting things about my past, whether it interests people or not, I don't care. Also, one of the things is I'm not dependent on awakening camps, so I don't care whether I make money with it or not. It's also not related to money, but we'll talk about that also later. So this is just for, I think it's for people to understand a little bit where I'm coming from with everything that I'm doing and why am I doing it, or where it's going, more or less. So when I was 24, I did a lot of that working out and stuff. And the interesting thing is, I thought, and a lot of people around me, even my parents, thought like something is like strange or not the same as other people with me. And so they recommended to me to go to a psychiatrist or something like that. And uh, I used to I used to notice that I would be in good mood like 2 weeks, and then I would be in bad mood 2 weeks. And I was extremely interested in success, like entrepreneurial success, but it wasn't like from a lack. It was more like of a joy. It was more like it would be so cool to have this lifestyle, and remind you, back then this lifestyle didn't exist yet. Nowadays we talk about influencers, we talk about, people who run internet companies being, super rich. Back then it didn't exist yet. It started first with the dot-com bubble, but it wasn't yet completely in mainstream media. It wasn't really widely known. Like, for example, you didn't know Elon Musk was with PayPal, and or Peter Thiel and all of these people, and even Jeff Bezos. At that moment, people didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about Larry Page. We don't of Google. We didn't talk about, Sergey Brin of Google. We didn't talk about Steve Ballmer of Microsoft. Maybe him a little bit. We didn't talk about Larry Ellison from Oracle. A little bit Steve Jobs, but also not much. It's just this kind of celebrity that came a little bit later. These type of, like, Mark Zuckerberg didn't exist yet. That was kind of like 2004 it started. So, oh, by the way, I programmed one of the first social networks ever. So that was even before MySpace. So, uh, yeah, I did a lot of these things. I was just very interested in that. My interest was always, like, at that time, is how connecting people. And it was interesting because in that time it was super interesting, like the idea of pioneering this kind of Wild West idea of what's gonna happen when we connect the whole world, when we have everybody connect to each other. And it felt like something positive. It felt something like there was no stigmatization to it. There was no idea that it could be actually also a bad thing. And nowadays, everything turned around. We know these shorts are bad for dopamine, and our brain gets brainwashed by it. And it has a lot of negative effects, which at that time, it was just like connecting with people. So there wasn't any videos or stuff, like, or not much of it. YouTube also came much later. So that was an interesting part. And so I was very much an introvert in the sense, like, there's one thing that I wanted to talk about. So I had sociophobia. So I was very, very afraid of things. So, for example, I would be super afraid to go alone shopping. So I couldn't even go shopping alone, like for food or something. It was super weird to have this. And I learned, then I was in the library once, or bookstore, and I saw a cheap book for sale, which was EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and I bought it. And I started doing it on myself for kind of like releasing the phobia. And within 1 or 2 weeks doing EFT, I released the phobia, and I created my own EFT routine, which is a mix of different EFT routines. And so that was one of my first experiences of actually healing myself from something. I wasn't super aware of it, but I became more aware of it over time, that I healed myself from this. And then when I was around 30 something, I started to get a little bit frustrated with certain things in at work. And and that's where I started to develop, like, stomach problems. And I was already doing, like, yoga type of exercises, breathing techniques. Again, on the internet there wasn't much information, but there was a little bit of information. Like, there were some people talking about Anking, like Ankh from Egypt. That was kind of like what we would see now as Taoistic microcosmic breathing. So that wasn't very known at that time, and there wasn't many books for it. So it was more popular to talk about personal coaching, like self-help, like Tony Robbins and stuff like that. So um and at that time I also did a test on my IQ, which came out like a pre-test for Mensa, which is a high IQ society, and it came out at 135, which is like very talented, not genius but very talented, and like less than one in 100 has 135. So and I started to learn that I'm just very unique in a lot of ways. I and we have something which is called projection bias. It's kind of the idea that appear that you think you are like others. Whatever you think you are, you assume that others are like that. And then as the years went on, I realized it's totally not like that. At least superficially speaking. We're gonna talk about the spiritual aspects a little bit later. Now I'm more like speaking about grounded stuff. And so more like earthy kind of social norms and social ideas and in society. And so so when I was 27, I had a work I worked at a place which was not my own company, and this is the first time that I really had like intense intimacy with another woman. She was a married woman. I was 27, she was 47. She was a French woman, very beautiful, and we would have intimacy every day. We were co-workers, and she was married with two kids, but she obviously wasn't happy at home, and we would have sex every day. Her husband didn't know anything about it, and I would have an apartment next to the office, and we would just go there every day. And the this is an important part. This is so I'm mentioning this because I guess I don't know for women as well, but men talk about it differently. I'm very open, okay? I don't have taboos, so I talk about anything. So as time went on, um, uh, so one point she left like the workplace. I stayed there, and then I left also at some point, and because I also realized it's not my soul plan. I'm not supposed to be. Oh, Timo just arrived. This is cool. It's funny. Uh, I wonder what he's gonna do. Um, okay, yeah, he's gonna drive over there, and so yeah, I'm van living now. I've been for 4 years. I've been van living, and I'm friends with Timo, who is like a Kundalini a practitioner. Very good guy. If you ever want to do like something like Kundalini stuff, he's the guy. And so the let's continue talking about it. So yeah, so I still had to have the stomach problem like 30 something, and then I had a friend of a friend of a friend of my mother's to get me a craniosacral therapy, and that was super good. It activated all my chakras, and it was like my chakras activated literally like clockwork. It was super interesting. Like the whole night, literally the whole night, my chakras would activate. But even before that, I found an exercise on the internet with Mahasakral Mudra, which is two mudras, like hand gestures, and I did specific breathing exercise, and it activated my sexual energy, which then went into my heart chakra, and it started burning in my heart chakra. I didn't know at that time like about Kundalini awakening, so my heart chakra was like really burning, and it felt like I'm gonna burn from the inside. So I was very afraid at that moment, and I just stopped it. Um, so and then the stomach problems became more intense, and I actually ended up in the hospital once because of the stomach problems, but they couldn't find anything, so they did all kinds of tests with me. But it was an interesting moment because the guy next to me was like 77 and he had a tumor, very rare tumor, and he was interested in spirituality, and he used to be in Rishikesh when he was younger. And we had a deep discussion, and he started crying like crazy when I left. And he said, "No, please stay longer." And I said, "I'm not gonna stay in the hospital. I don't want to die here." That wasn't probably the nicest thing to say when I said I don't want to die here, because he would probably stay there. I don't know. So, uh, and then when I was at home, I did get that problem again. And then instead of going to the hospital, I said to myself, I'm going to die at home. I'm just going to lie in bed and just die at home. And then that was interesting because I went into kind of like a trance with Bija mantras. And so then the trance told me, in the trance, I got this message, tap your problem. So I just started tapping it and tapping it and tapping it. I tapped it for 2 hours until the energy got released. But I have to come back a little bit because there was something else before that which was much more important. So when I had this craniosacral therapy and I had all of these chakras activate, a few months later I found Muji on the internet, and Muji is like a spiritual teacher for non-duality Advaita Vedanta, claims the realization you're not your thoughts. And I was listening to him, and I knew that he was talking about something that he knew something about. So I could sense there's some authenticity to what he was saying, but I didn't understand what he was talking about. So I literally listened to him every day for a whole year. Every day for a whole year. And after like a year, I came back from a lake driving with the bicycle, and I came back from the lake, and I listened to another video, and suddenly there was like this, what I call now the kickback. Kickback is basically the moment that you come from this dense thinking process or identification with thought process to really just resting as awareness, as consciousness. And that was so profound that I immediately went into complete silence. And then I sat in silence for like a week, and this in this complete silence for a week, I received what I now call the heart intuition. Is when you're so in silence and you start to receive, you open up the channel and you start to receive messages from above instead of from below. And the message from above said massage women. And it was confusing for me because I wanted to be an internet entrepreneur. I was an internet entrepreneur, and I didn't feel like massaging women, or I thought like, who am I gonna massage? Like women that I don't want to touch, maybe. And the session, the energy came again, and it said again, in like an hour later, massage women. And so I started with massaging. So I started opening a blog on the internet talking about massaging women, and the first blog was only erotic massages. So massaging, or like just pure erotic massages, and all of the text that I wrote was completely channeled. I didn't even think about it. The whole blog, like all the text, just it was flowing like crazy. And one of the interesting things is that everything that I've done before needed time before it worked. But this thing already worked within 2 days. And I put it on the internet, and 2 days later, I had my first client. I was like, what? And the first client was super beautiful woman, but she looked at me when I opened the door, and she was like, I don't want a massage from you. And I'm like, oh my god, she's so superficial. Because she said, you look so different than the pictures that you had on the internet. And I said, well, okay, if you don't want the massages. Well, we spoke for a long time, and then she left, she didn't get a massage, and then I saw, well, if it starts like this, I can immediately stop. And then the second client was much, much, much better. And of course, I can make like a 10-hour video just on the massages. But let me start with this. A lot of women nowadays that don't know me and don't know my sessions criticize me and feel disgust just hearing of what I do or how I am. And this doesn't do what I do at all justice, and this is also not for everyone. And I want to explain it now here in this kind of video. And I've done over 1,000 sessions with women, over 1,000 sessions. And when I came to a couple of hundred sessions, I started to be a master in what I do. And then in the last few hundred sessions, I started to even massage 2 women at the same time. And I have so many good reviews from back then that are so unusual and so good that I don't know anyone else who has these kind of reviews. So when I get criticized or people are like, especially online, most of people are nowadays assholes. We're gonna get into that even more. I know it sounds horrible because so many people expect me as a spiritual person to say and do things a certain way because they have a certain dogmatic idea of it. So and like I say, I'm very authentic, I'm very direct. I'm just gonna say how things are. And there's a lot of things I don't like about modern society, and I'm not the only one. Younger people don't see this because they're so brainwashed into this, but okay. So when I did my third session, I and my clients quickly realized that I have tremendous abilities that no one else has. There's very few people who have these abilities, and I can feel and release energy blockages in the nadis, in the around the chakras, just by feeling the back, like just going into the back. So when somebody comes with pain to me, for example, I can release the pain within one session, almost any kind of pain. And I'm gonna get into like testimonials and type of sessions that I had. I can remember most of these sessions. So after the third session became super clear, and people were like, how come I have pain there? And I would say, just feel it. And then it was an interesting shift, because the shift was from the idea, the feeling that that there's something wrong with me, which I had before in my life, even though I was medium successful entrepreneur, was that there's nothing wrong with me. There's just I'm highly sensitive to energies. So that was suddenly very, very clear. Before it was weird. Now it was because I couldn't pinpoint why am I feeling this way or that way, and now it suddenly became super clear. And so I became better and better and better and better in guiding these sessions. And when I started van life, many years later, I'm gonna just skip forward and back, is there was a kind of like an inauguration of a tantric place in Portugal, and there were 7 healers that met to clean up the place and prepare it. And it was an interesting ritual. And I came also to that place. That was in Portugal, and 2 of these girls were like tantric. They were tantric knowledgeable, so they did a lot of tantric retreats. And we sat down one evening, and one of the women came a little bit closer. I came a little bit closer, and I started to do a session with her. And she was like, this guy's off the charts. Like, this guy really knows what he's doing. He can feel all of this stuff. And she even had to slow herself down, because she said, like, if she lets us go as connection, she would go into full orgasmic ecstasy. And the next day they obviously chatted about it at night. I wasn't there. And then the next day, the other woman, which was also very knowledgeable, they were like friends, she said, he needs to do my session. He needs to really, I'm gonna lie down and he's gonna come and work on me. And she went completely like, I don't know if you know Kundalini type stuff, or the Reiki type, like high energy type stuff, like Kundalini awakening process. I don't like this name, Kundalini awakening process. I'm just saying it's like, if you've ever seen those videos, that's a little bit what it looks like. But she was, for her, it was absolutely like crazy. So for her, it was absolutely intense. So anyway, so forward, going back again. So, what type of sessions did I do? So, it was basically intuitive sessions, but it was always based in kind of erotic energy, sexual energy tantra, including yoni massage. And so, I did intimate massages. I did basically 1,000 intimate massages with women. And so, women that were abused, women that were raped, women that just wanted to explore their body, women that never had an orgasm, women that was just curious, women that wanted to have a spiritual session, women that wanted to heal a trauma, basically the whole spectrum. And for example, there was a woman. I mean, I have millions of these stories, but there was a woman over 40 years old. She never had an orgasm. Her husband complained always that she's dry, and that she's not enjoying sex. Blah blah blah. And when she came to me, she was wet within 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes she had her first orgasm. And that could switched her view of intimacy and sexuality so much that she actually divorced the guy, took the children with her, bought an apartment. She was very successful. She had her own successful business, and she met another guy who then became her partner, and she was super happy. So these experiences, depending on what they're about, can be very life changing. Or for example, I talk about this one of the girls because that was a very strong experience for her. She had 25 years. She was like 27 or so. She had 25 years tremendous back pain. Oh, it started with when she was 5, so she had like 22 years tremendous back pain. And she couldn't get up. She couldn't get up in the morning, like from being a kid to adulthood, and she always had this tremendous pain. Doctors didn't know what to do with it. They give her just ibuprofen or something like that, and they didn't know what to do with it at all. And then she visited me on Mallorca when I was living in Mallorca, but she visited me not because of the tantra, because she was like couch surfing. And I say, hey, listen, this is what I did. This was actually after I stopped with the massages, when I was doing them a lot. This was also already like 1 or 2 years after. And I told her, if you want, we can make like a session. We do like what I call it now chakra breathing and tantric session, and but fully dressed, a little bit yoga, changing your diet and so forth. So we did that for 3 days. Not even super intense, but we worked on it. And within 3 days, the pain was completely gone. And then 2 weeks later, she calls me and she says, listen, I've never felt so much love in my life. Like my heart chakra is completely open. And she was completely blown away. She was like so grateful. And this happened many times. So I have a friend who's also, I know I'm not talking to her anymore because it's a long time ago, but she's also a masseuse, but normal masseuse. And I did a session with her at her home, and it was a simple session. And she said she never felt so much heart intensity in her life, like heart openness. And the last time she felt something similar was in a special like long-term retreat in India, but with me it was like just one session. Or for example, this other woman, which was one of my last sessions that I did with a Dutch woman in her van. We did like a dressed tantric, what I call chakra breathing session, which is very erotic as well, but you're not really going intimate in the like energetically, yes, but not like in touch. And she said to me it felt like 3 days of microdosing on mushrooms. Everything felt like hypersensitive and so forth. So I have many of these kind of experiences, that, or for example, one of my favorites is also a woman that was twice raped by two different men, and she went to therapy, to a normal therapist, and the therapist was like, she couldn't do with her anything anymore. She said like, you should find somebody like me, because we are hitting the limits of therapy, and you need to go and work with energy, with the body. So she found me, and we started doing like sessions. She was 21, super young, and her boyfriend was also okay with her doing the sessions because intimacy wasn't working in her relationship. And every time something became erotic, she would completely like close up. And so we started working basically once a week. And fascinating is she started to see chakras, like the colors of chakras. There's a guy in Switzerland who has, I always forget his name. He does the same thing. He can like see chakras, and so she started to see chakras during the sessions, and she started to even be telepathic with animals. So that kind of intensity of those negative experiences that had with the sessions were transformed into something positive and something like clairvoyant. Super interesting. And um and yeah, and the intimacy that solved a lot. One of the problems was though that I had a girlfriend at that time. She wished that I stopped with the sessions. So I stopped with the sessions, and I had to tell her, the young woman, that she can't come anymore. But then I realized like 2 or 3 months later that I cannot stop this. Like I had to do this at that time, and my girlfriend wasn't in love anyway. It was clear like she was more obsessive, controlling, and I was already too advanced, like spiritually, to have a girlfriend that is lower vibrating in that sense. By the way, I've discussed this with many people. Like, can you, as an awakened person, be with a non-awakened person? Actually, Muji also answered this question once. He said there are beautiful relationships that happen like that, and he says it can work. I'm not so sure. There's always one thing interesting. Like with Timo today, we sat in a restaurant, and I spoke to so many people today, and I can talk to anyone. I can talk to any girl, no matter how beautiful, no matter what type the person is, and in no matter in what setting. And he's like, because there were two French people sitting next to us, like one, and then they left, and then came someone else, and I spoke to them both, and Timo's like, how can you do that? Like, I'm so introverted, I couldn't do that. And because I lost that introversion, and I said, yeah, I can just do it. And that's a funny thing, because I can literally talk to anyone anywhere without any kind of problem. And at the same time, I would say I'm one of the best tantra masseurs for women in the world. But there's a very interesting thing, that when you meet me on the street, not when you come to my session, that's something else, but when you meet me on the street, I feel like everyone is running away from me. Like they appreciate and they like my energy and they like the contact, but it's like I've never had a woman be like, "Oh my god, he's like really cool. He's a really nice guy. I really want to get to know him." I never hear from them again, which is really bizarre. Like this kind of contradiction, because most people have problems talking to people on the street, or getting to meet people, or talk, yeah, or they're maybe bad in bed. They don't know sensuality. They don't know intimacy. They don't know what women like, and I know all of this stuff. So it's kind of strange that I still have this tremendous problem of meeting someone and then being like, "Oh, I would love to have this go further," and from the other side, it's like very little interest in not being in contact, but of it going further. It's kind of really bizarre, really really bizarre. Sometimes it feels almost like cursed in a way. So we talked about this today, and it's interesting to observe this. um so yeah, so after a few hundred sessions, I became a real master. So people, like, there was a woman, I remember, she was completely dressed, and she started to have an energetic orgasm throughout her whole body. She never experienced like this before. We were just doing chakra breathing, and she was like orgasming for like 4 or 5 minutes, and then she goes like this, and is like, "You are a fucking magician. Like, how do you do this?" And I was just grinning. And but for some people, it's they cannot process this. Like, at the moment when they're experiencing it, they're like, "This is cool." But for some, it's also like, "What the fuck did just happen? Like, is that good, really?" Or, they don't understand like the whole Kundalini awakening process. They don't understand chakras. They don't know nadis. They don't know releasing emotions. So for some, it's just too intense. And but the good thing is, I know the whole mechanical process, so I can literally explain the whole thing. Why is it happening? How is it happening? What do you need to do? All of this stuff. And yeah, so I also don't like when people make fun. Even Muji made once fun of Tantra, and I don't like that, because I'm a real master in what I do, and I think it's if you're really good in it and you're going from the right intention, it's really something very, very special. The problem is, many people who do Tantra, they didn't have the awakening, so they don't come from this area of awakening and safe space. They don't have the intuition, they don't have the sensitivity for true safe space. So especially a lot of men come from the only the sexual part, with like they want to touch women. And I always tell these guys, when they're like, "I want to do the same job," I'm like, "You don't have the capacity to do this. You would probably end up in jail like in a few months." Because you need to like really feel what's going on. And uh so and now everything is stigmatized. Everything that's intimacy is stigmatized. That's why I also reduced what I do a lot, and I do it only organically, like when it really feels like the moment has come to do this, instead of having me like 5 women call me per day and be like, do you have time for a session, which was more like a business. I mean, business in the sense, like, from the amount of people, it was a lot. So I mean, in 3.5 years, 1,000 sessions, when one session is 2 hours at least. Sometimes it would be 5 or 6 or 7 hours, depending. And but I absolutely love it. Like, I absolutely love doing these sessions. It's really, 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 really good. What I lack, what no, not lack, what I wish I had is a partner, a female partner, which not only accepts these sessions but likes them, and is even open to exploring it. I had one ex-girlfriend who was not only bisexual, but she was very, very sensitive. So she would touch someone and she could see their traumatic past, like, visually. I've never seen this before in someone. And it's 100% true. Like, and she helped me with 2 or 3 sessions, and I saw her, how she worked with people, and she didn't want to do it, but she helped me with 2 or 3 people who had some deeper issue, and it was beautiful to see how people transformed. Like, one woman, she had trouble raising her arm, and she came to me, and I said, well, my ex-girlfriend, my girlfriend at that time, I said she would be also open to help you, so we do 2 separate sessions. You do one with her, you do one with me. And at the end of the evening, she went home, and the next day she could raise her arm again, and it came literally from a stuck anger that was released. So that was super interesting. And but I'm already my, my ex-girlfriend also had a lot of issues and anger issues from the past that she projected into our relationship, and um I felt I cannot be with anyone anymore who does what I call toxic metaframing. Toxic metaframing now would completely would put another 2 hours on this video, so I'm not gonna do that. And it's basically when you're unhappy, projecting your unhappiness onto the other or your partner or whoever, and that's what she would do. And I'm so clear and so trans like I'm so under I understand so many things now, so many dynamics, that I don't accept toxic dynamics anymore on no level, and unless they're consciously resolved within the relationship. So, um, so those were like the tantric sessions, and then COVID came. I had to stop. Then I was isolating myself, and then I bought a van, which is this car, this van, and I started to travel. And I'm traveling now for 4 years, and now I'm thinking of buying a camping place and transforming it into a spiritual camping place, which then would be called Awakening Camp, and in Portugal. Whether that happens or not is a little bit. I leave it a little bit to the universe, a little bit like when I had the awakening and started to do the tantra. And actually, to the van life, I was a little bit fearful driving around alone, or the idea of driving alone, not knowing where I would go. And then I did for myself like vipassana. I put my phone on the side, and every day I would like sit in silence. And then I cried out a lot of fears from my root chakra. And then the moment they were cleared, I was like, I'm ready to find a place in Portugal to live, and I'm gonna find a van to use that as an instrument for finding that property. So I immediately, like 2 weeks later, there was a van available, which at that time there was no other vans available, and I immediately bought it. I knew this is the one, and I've been traveling 4 years since, and it's a very interesting experience. This van life. Sometimes I have a feeling I'm coming to the end of van life, and I also felt like meeting so many different people. I'm at the point where I feel like, because I'm still single, that this left woke mind virus, as they call it, which really infiltrated a lot of people's minds, I feel like is hindering me. Not only that, not just that, but it's like it's almost getting more and more difficult to find someone for a relationship on many levels. So one of the ideological kind of, the spiritual, the it's getting more and more difficult. So in, at least in Europe and North America, and so I feel maybe I'll leave, instead of opening the camp, I'll leave Europe and go maybe to Asia or go to South America. And I've been talking about this with other people, also with Timor, my best friend, Victoria. I've been talking to her about this. Is that uh, it's kind of like I'm a little bit like a misogynist in a way, which sounds strange being spiritual, but there's a lot of people I don't like. But I realize why I don't like them. It's not because I don't like them, as I don't really like them. It's just that they have something in them which I kind of don't want back in my life. So I've left the matrix, you could say, in a lot of ways, like spiritually, psychologically, energetically, vibrationally, whatever. And I feel like the people who are still in it for whatever reason, they're attached to some of these old energies which are left behind. I feel like I don't want to get back into that. And some nationalities, for example, for me, are very strong in this. So, for example, Germans are very much in this mind controlling space and very much thinking. And so, not everyone. I'm just saying it's like there's like a collective consciousness around certain nations that have a certain energy field. And so I realized, like, I was seeing all of these people everywhere, and I was like, Man, I'm ready to leave Europe immediately. I just want to have like fun people around me, like the Philippines or something. I can't stand this old stock karmic, deep, troublesome energy. And then suddenly I started to meet, like, in one day, from out of nowhere, I met like three or four people that were more on my vibration, and they were completely like, and it was like really really cool and really nice. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of nice, this is kind of cool right now. And uh yeah, so so that's where I'm at now, and right now in Tarifa in Spain, and then I'm gonna go to Portugal, take a look at these properties that are for sale, which already have a camping license in place, and see if I would do something like that. And the idea of spiritual awakening camp or awakening camp is literally manifold, because I'm a musician. Oh, this is something that I forgot to say. Yeah, I'm actually I'm when I was really young, like 15, 16, I was a professional techno producer, and I did live acts in clubs where and I had a CD out and cassettes and tapes basically, and I would make money with selling my music. And the so I love making music, and I would love to have like a place where there's not only swimming pool, a gym, outdoor kitchen, um a podcast studio, a one-on-one session place, a group session place like for satsangs and more, a dancing place, a place where people can make music, an eco store where we can have organic food, um, and a music studio. I definitely want to have a grand piano. So and some eclectic instruments, and that's kind of like my ideal place. And if I can find that place that can have all of these things, then I'll get into it, then I'll do that at the right price, and of course most important is that I sleep there good, because I learned over the last 4 years van living, 90% of places I don't sleep well. There's very few energetically high power places, and what's really important is that it's protected energetically, but also that for example, I sleep really bad next to like 4G, 5G towers. And it's probably with 6G, it's gonna get even worse. Or for example, with the infrared, with the infrasound of the wind turbines, for example, in Tarifa, I can feel those. So there's a whole bunch of things that must fit, like. And if I find something where oh, by the way, it's also interesting, in every single Airbnb I've ever been to, and I've been to many Airbnbs, I sleep bad, literally everyone. And I think it has to do with the constant rotation of people there. It doesn't have like this cleared energy, it's like a whole lot of stuck energy. And the best place I slept in was in Las Olivas, which is a small place near Lampoya in Spain. There was like a wooden cabin, and it was very basic. It was just everything wood, and I really had good sleep there. So that was interesting. So ideally it would be like a wooden house or something like that. At least where I sleep. Like during the day, it's not such a big problem, but at least where I sleep. Yeah, so the awakening camp would then have people that come from all over the world for podcasts, for music, for body work, for energy sessions, for yoga, for and we would have workshops running all the time, basically workshop, and festivals, not like electronic music festivals or like loud but everything like festival, like kind of like alternative, hard based, very conscious. And I would even love to start an ecological fashion brand from this project, because I have a knack for art, and for fashion also. So that would be kind of cool. But actually, my art teacher and I'd always had a very strong knack for fashion, and I had a label which was called Futurewear, but I never. The older I got, the more conscious I got, the more I realized it's one of. Actually, did you know that fast fashion or fashion and cosmetics is like 1/3 of all world pollution? And so shame onto you if you buy constantly new fashion. A lot of people don't know this. Like, most people are ignorant on almost everything, and it's absolutely amazing how ignorant people are and how they don't care and all of this stuff. So you need to be super conscious and make conscious decisions. So, um, so that's one of the reasons why I didn't continue with fashion, because I didn't want to pollute Earth more. But now I think it would be possible to do something like ecological, maybe with hemp or something like that. Who knows? Um, so that's like a dream. My problem though is that I'm not good in administrative stuff. I'm good in visionary stuff. I'm good in placing the right pieces in the right place, putting the right pieces in the right place, but I'm not good in like managing day-to-day very like administrative things. And so I was thinking this place would be ideal if there would be like 3 or 4 girls living with me that are all very conscious, all kind of interesting also in tantric things and or energy healing things, and that would help me with the whole place, which would also allow me to sometimes leave the place and they can just take over and run it. And so that would be kind of like the ideal thing. And if it doesn't happen, I'll just travel the world. And I also do something which is called ASMR, which is like I do like whispering in the microphone, and people love my voice. So a lot of people actually go to sleep listening to my voice, and that's something I do on the side. And I have this Spanish ASMR channel just as grew from 1,300 to 1,700 subscribers in like one day, and people say I should concentrate on that because then I would become famous and affect so many people's lives positively. And the good thing is, then you can transport stuff, information in those ASMRs that help people. Like it could be even spiritual information and so forth. And so I'm very open to see where the universe pulls me, what happens, because or clearly if suddenly I have 1 million subscribers, ASMR, so for example Spanish channel, then I can do, for example, ASMR for non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, spiritual awakening, or I could raise people's frequency in a massive, like, with massive reach. So that was like, but I'm not dogmatic about it. I'm not idealistic about it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Now, the good thing is, I'm not at all financially dependent on any of this. So I'm financially completely independent from any work, and that is a very special situation that I'm in. And so I don't need to push it. And if it doesn't feel right, I just don't do it. Now, one thing that I absolutely hate is how many people are like left woke, and they have certain idea of how everything should be and how I should act, especially for men. Like, men should do this, men should be that. And it's weird because exactly those same people say you should be tolerant, you should be open, you should accept everyone, but nobody accepts me like the way I'm just am, the way I do things. And it's partially like really bizarre. And I think people are like um they are like I think I'm just, by the way, what I know, what at which frequency I vibrate at, how I am. I think maybe it's just too intense for some people, even if they don't know why. Maybe they cannot express it, but they kind of like sense it, maybe. And maybe also there's something like in my energy that makes people become aware of their unresolved things, which makes them not like to be in my space. Maybe that's also one of these things. And one of the things is also I don't accept in my vicinity a continuation of old patterns. So if you're toxic, I'm gonna want you to not be toxic, or just leave my space. I'm gonna leave your space. Yeah, and I'm so clear about these things now. It's absolutely insane. Um, and one of the things I absolutely dislike is everybody who has spiritual ideas of what I should do or what's unresolved in me. I go like, it's like those, there is my one of my ex-girlfriends, my last ex-girlfriend, she said something which I really like. She said übergriffig, which is like a German word for you encroach on other people's territory. And that's what a lot of people do, like especially spiritual people. So they'll be giving you advice like which you never asked for. So they'll be like, maybe you should look at your problem with this and that. I'm like, yeah, okay. And and they seem to have like this, they think they have this right to do this, and whatever. So uh and there's a very, I mean, there's a lot of things that are misunderstood about spirituality. A lot of things, like a lot of people who are not awakened think that spirituality has to do with only good positive feelings and everything is so happy, and if you're not always like, if not everything is so in a certain way, then it's not spiritual. It's all weird. um but and now coming to the soul plans, to the soul missions. So basically I do two things. One of the things is these very deep tantric sessions. The other thing is soul plan reading. So I can read people's soul plans and figure out if they're doing the right thing, if they're doing the thing that they're really meant to do. Because a lot of people are doing something that they shouldn't actually be doing. And they're wasting maybe 20, 30, 40 years doing something that actually is not good for them. So I do these things. It's like 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and I ask them questions. I connect with their energy, and it over time it becomes more clear. It's like a distillation process. It becomes more clear as to where they are or what they should be doing, if they're doing the correct thing or not. And in my life, I noticed something. I've asked myself the same question, like, what is my soul mission, my soul plan? And I realized that there is something super interesting, that that there's doors that open. I go through that door, and in that door, in that room, in that new room, I learn a lot of new things. And then the door closes, and a new door opens, and I have to go through that, and then I learn a whole bunch of new things. And those, so I go from door to door to door. I'm not supposed to stay in a door that I've already learned. And this is something that was really good to learn about me, about my soul plan, is because it's not about, say for example, being being successful, being an entrepreneur, and then just doing that forever, like staying in that room. But learning to do that well, being good in it, closing that door closes by itself, and then I go into the next door and I learn, for example, tantra massages, and I become the best in that. Then that door closes again, a new door opens, and so forth. And and I just let myself flow by what the universe, which way it's pulling, and what is in which way it is pulling me into. And I'm definitely a star seed. So my parents, my sister, my grandparents, nobody, my great grandparents, nobody is in spirituality. So I'm a star seed in the sense, like I'm very different from all my ancestors in that regard. And I feel like I don't read because I feel like all of the big pushes in my life, the big jumps ahead, were through sitting in silence, not through reading something, or anything. And a lot of things, I also in energy healing, there's a lot of things I kind of invented or discovered which are in no books, like for example chakra breathing. And yeah, and a lot of things that I talk about are controversial for minds that are closed minded, that are not open to listen to what I'm actually saying and reflecting. If you have like have a emotional knee jerk reaction to it, then maybe I hit the right spots. And uh yeah, and there's so many insults. It's absolutely amazing. It's like, I don't know, it's especially I feel Europe and North America are so dense. It's so tremendously dense even when they think they're not dense, but it feels very dense. And I feel like um, I feel like it's gonna be very interesting where it's gonna go from this. But okay, then let's talk about the spiritual aspect. After 1 hour, the spiritual aspect is literally that when I say who am I, of course now I talked a lot about the kind of the experience, my soul plan as to what I've experienced so far emotionally and spiritually during this life. But then there is like a second part, which is the realization you are not your thoughts, you're not the body, you're just pure consciousness, and that's the true who am I. So the other is kind of like just the physical experience of certain things that happens, but the true self is like the awakened self. In my mind, I don't make clear distinctions from it because there's some people who are very dogmatic about that as well. Well, you've been talking about 1 hour about, the personhood. Maybe you should be doing. No, it's just is what it is. I don't judge it. I don't make it bigger than it is. I'm just, flowing with whatever comes. And I think this is a huge problem with spirituality, to be quite honest. I think it's a huge problem with spirituality that people are so dogmatic about it rather than just being in the now, not thinking about future, not thinking about past, and just whatever is being said now, whatever is happening now is just what it is. And like Eckhart Tolle says, in full acceptance. And there's very few masters. There's Eckhart Tolle, there's Muji, there's Papaji, there's Ramana Maharshi, very Srinivasadatta. There are very few masters of, let's say, of the recognition of non-duality. And I think there's a reason why Ramana Maharshi didn't talk, because he realized you cannot change anyone with words. You cannot. There is no reason for idealism. You just stick to your own recognition, and that's it. So on one hand, I would love to do Tantra again. On another hand, like anytime I'm thinking about putting it up on the internet again, I don't feel the same push or pull. When I started, I felt like a very intense push pull to reopen these tantric pages. To open the tantric pages, but now it feels like I would have to force myself to do these pages. So maybe that's a room that's a little bit closed, but I'm open to it. Like when a woman comes to me and she's like, "Hey, I really want to do this," or in a partnership, definitely. And also in intimacy and sexuality, I don't want a partner anymore that is still vibrating in that old consciousness. Unless she's open and growing very fast with me, I don't want that anymore. It's very, very, very limiting and I mean, if for example, if I were to be intimate with her and she trusts me and we are going fast, like fast in terms of like growing spiritually together, then it's fine. But if I see she's stuck and she even is like pushing back, it's like I don't trust you, then And nowadays, also, I feel that a lot of Western women, North American women, they're so mistrustful to energies like from certain guys. There's kind of like this underlying hate and anger towards men, which is to me is completely unjustified. I remember the first time I met my ex girlfriend and I put my hand over her heart chakra while she was complaining of pain, and she's like, "Who gave you permission to 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 kind of have your hand over my heart chakra?" And I was like, "Jesus fuck." I was like, "No, no, no, no." So, yeah, you should be able in a partnership to feel the intention of the other person and just trust them, right? Because otherwise you're not in a partnership if you're not trusting. So, well, the thing about my last relationship is really interesting because I tried to do something which I've never done in a relationship before. Is just being aware, completely just aware without judging anything. And what I realized is that she was, a lot of times she was just toxic, and but I was just letting it go and saying, let's see what happens. And then I learned something else also. It's a little bit with narcissistic people, it's the same. You could do this like 40 years. You could do this 40 fucking years. And the person will always stay the same. It makes like no, literally like no sense to stay with them. Because they're not just gonna change just because you're super present. Um, Actually, you need to make a decision for self love, which is higher harmony. I talked about this already. And then you immediately let go of this person and let them go their way, you go your way, and you're saved from this misery. So there's, just because you're awakened doesn't mean you need to tolerate everything. um yeah, and I think there's a lot of things that I think women cannot handle when I say this. Like, for example, I don't want to live with dogs. I don't want to live with cats. I have nothing against dogs and I have nothing against cats. I don't particularly like most dogs. I like, for example, a golden retriever. I like those type of dogs, like those with those kind of like mood, that kind of mood. But or character, but I don't need to live with dogs. And it's amazing, like everyone has a dog and a cat. It's like, what the fuck? What's going on? Like everybody needs a dog and a cat, and it's their center of their life, and they talk to it like a human. To me, it's a bit weird, and I, like I said, I don't have anything against it, but I hate it when they also force it onto others. For example, dogs constantly barking, or running around free, and it's a little bit annoying. And I feel like I've always been like that. My dad had a dog, and I always felt like it breaks your sleep cycle because they have just a different sleep cycle. It's not that hygienic. A lot of these things, like, and playing with them once in a while, sure. And I think these kind of like ways to see life makes me uninteresting for a lot of women, because I think they want to be like this. Oh, that's so cute, and this is so cute, and this is so cute, and you must be the guy who also finds everything cute. Yeah, and it's interesting. So, and of course, if I would go to Asia, I don't have this problem at all, because they wouldn't care. There's like, this is a cool guy. He has the financial means to support me. I like being with him. We have a lot. We do a lot of fun stuff together. You don't need to fight in the relationship. There's no like question of, you know, oh, he's not fulfilling my needs. Yeah. Um, so I'm ready to eventually make that step. So it will be interesting in this kind of like crossroads. Will I go the and open the awakening camp in Portugal, or will I go and travel all over the world? I said something super funny. I said, if my ASMR videos really take off and it has like millions of subscribers in different languages, then I would travel all over the world and in every country eat traditional dishes and then make an ASMR video eating those traditional dishes. I think that would be so fun and just travel all over the world. And as long as I'm capable physically to do this, it would be super interesting. And my body revolved around the sun already 47 times, so I don't have that much time left in that way because time runs super fast. Also in van life, like it's already again a year is over. Again, we're at the end of January. Time goes super fast. So if you want to experience something or want to do something, you have to be open to do it as fast as possible because you can't wait until forever. And now I give a lot of the advice to younger people I usually give is start already with 20. Do what I call lifestyle design. Like immediately start living the way you want to and then figure out the rest later instead of trying to start work which you don't like and then hoping that you have enough money to do it later. I would say, nah, just start immediately and try to figure it out on the way. And some young people already do this with success. And at least you had the experience, even if you've then to go back to your parents because you ran out of money. At least you had the experience, and that you can never, nobody can take that away from you. So that's a huge that's like a huge thing as well. And um, yeah. So let me see if there's anything else I want to say. I'm one of the things is character wise. I'm usually always optimistic. I wake up in the morning. I'm like optimistic. I'm usually in a good mood. Sometimes I've like, if I'm physically, if I don't have an ailment, it's like I have 9 out of 10 days. Like a really good days, especially if it's nice weather, nice place. Um, yeah, and I'm completely free time wise. I have nothing that tells me you need to wake up at this time, you need to be at that place at that time. But what I tell people also, it has to do first with spiritual growth. You have to first do the spiritual growth and then the life switches. If you try to switch life first and the spiritual growth is not there, you will be miserable anywhere. It's like you take yourself with you. So, like Eckhart Tolle says, become super aware, super present, and everything else flows from that. And but I'm a believer is also something which I call libido empowerment, which is really enjoying joy, like enjoying life, and allowing yourself to eat the fruits of life, which includes sports, it includes flirting, it includes good food, traveling. You know, don't limit yourself. Don't be ascetic, celibate just because you feel it brings you something spiritually. Unless it's really your soul plan. For some people, it's really deeply in their soul plan to do this. I enjoy. For example, I met 4 people today that I spoke to on the street, and it was a really good experience, and I really enjoyed it. And other people would be like limiting themselves and be like, I don't know. Um, so anything else that I want to talk about? Sometimes I enjoy how I trigger people because I know I trigger people, and sometimes I enjoy it because I think because I'm detached from it and I realize it has nothing to do with me. It's more like their own unresolved stuff that happens in them. And I think people also, some people have really an issue with accepting someone who's very clear and very demanding in a way. I'm not demanding on others, but I'm like demanding on my clarity and my truth. And I think that's because some people feel like they can't manipulate me, but they would love to manipulate me, kind of like this. It just doesn't work. I'm absolutely unmanipulable. Unmanipulable. Um, I've I've done 4 rounds of Portugal, Spain, and France. 4 rounds every year. Summer I'm in France. Last summer I was actually in Spain, but and then France. But I usually do like this, round and round and round. And I'm feeling like I'm coming to the end of it. Maybe I could imagine myself doing maybe Italy and Croatia or something like that. But um, I feel like I'm not to make another round feels like then my the learning process is kind of over. The door is kind of I can sense the door closing. So it will be interesting where it goes next. But I on one hand I would absolutely love to have, for example, the recording studio with the piano and all of the recording equipment, all of this stuff, and have the tantra plays with the swimming pool. On the other hand, I really also want to experience the world. So it's gonna be super interesting which way it goes. I sometimes also think about if it's not in Portugal, then I want to be open to start this place or a similar place or just have my own home in some kind of really 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 cool place. I always say one of my favorite places optically, energetically would be Hawaii if Hawaii would not be American. I don't connect with the Americans. For me they're too obnoxious, too I don't know, almost energetically demanding. Um, Otherwise, I would love Hawaii. I like the architecture, and I love France houses, like the houses in France, the architecture and interiors of France with the large French windows. I love that as well. So I dislike a lot the houses in Portugal, and I dislike also a lot of the houses in Spain, like the typical like in Denia, the Costa del Sol houses for vacation homes with the this is super boring. And and some houses are really strange. Like I saw Brigitte Bardot when she died. Now they I saw pictures of her house that she sold at Saint Tropez, and I saw it from the inside and was like, how ugly. And but there's some French houses like in direction Pyrenees and near Toulouse. They're absolutely awesome. It's like absolutely awesome. Mm. There's one place which I really like is Capbreton, Osgore, but it's massively expensive. Like the house that I really like was like 7 million euros, which is in a real estate bubble is absolutely insane. Um, so yeah, we will see what happens. We will see what happens. Having done 4 years of van life, it's interesting that I feel like I don't click with a lot of van lifers. The best people that I've met are actually non-van lifers. So, and my best friend Victoria from Brazil, she lives already a long time in Spain. She she is um she uh, she's not a van lifer, and yeah. But some van lifers are cool. Like, what you need to meet a lot of them before you meet the cool ones. Yeah. And what else? Yeah, I think I wanted to make a video which puts out which releases a lot of stuff like the way what I experienced, what I did, because I know what I want Awakening Camp to be hyper authentic. So I don't want people to connect with it that don't connect with my energy. Because it's not gonna be an Awakening Camp that is open for everyone. It's gonna be only open for people that connect with my energy. And since I'm not dependent on it, I can be this hyper authentic without needing anyone else there. So I don't need to fill it up in order to make money. And I think that's that's like the mission. The mission is to be hyper authentic. And I'd rather have only, for example, 2 people in a session or visiting than 100 people in a session, in a visiting that are not clicking with it. Because imagine you get people there that are doing drugs. Imagine you get people there that are blasting music, drinking alcohol, or smoking. All those people I don't want there. If they want to leave that and heal themselves from it is something else. But that is that I'd rather have just 1 or 2 people there, that are hyper clicking with what I'm putting out. And if people are like, oh yeah, he's just a sexual predator or something like that, and you come with that kind of mindset, no thank you, stay away. um and because that means just in a basic level they don't understand. I understand that many people cannot understand unless they've experienced a session, but there's a certain kind of, there's some people who just are living in resistance completely, and you cannot help them in any shape or form even if they make a session with you. I remember there was one woman that she didn't have money, and I decided to give her a free session. That was the only free session I've ever done. Like free session in the sense like in when I was doing it intensely. I did a couple of other free sessions, but this was like the free session while I was doing a lot of sessions, so I really didn't need to do this. But I felt like, okay, she's not earning any money, I'm gonna give it to her for free. In the end, she was the one who complained the most, and I tried to explain to her what she was like doing wrong, in the sense like what where she had the blockage and what she needed to let go, and I was 100% on point, but she wasn't able to see it. And she just complained and complained and complained, and it was totally unnecessary. And yeah, I have to say the interesting thing about life is that when you are young, like 20s, 30s, you have so much space to experiment. In the sense like you could do 2 years this, 2 years this, 2 years this, or even just 1 year, and experience everything like. And when you're 47, you have like you feel like you need to be very specific in what you choose, because you're going to otherwise lose the best years of your life, or the rest of the best years of your life. So for example, if I say, for example, I have a certain space, uh, if I have certain years in which I can experience, um, for example, intimacy, or tantra, or traveling, or intense work, that maybe is just another 7 years, maybe maximum 12 years, maximum. I mean, 12 in 13 years I would be 60. In 13 years I would be 60. So, and time flies like crazy. So, especially 47, or for example, with relationships, if I say I still want to have children, I have to be super deliberate about let me who I let into my intimate space to build something with them. It's an interesting problem to have. It's not a dilemma because you can solve it, but you must be already so knowledgeable that you don't make mistakes, because you literally can't afford mistakes at that age. Imagine like having a 5 year toxic relationship that you come out of like with 52. I'd be like, what the fuck? No, 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 no. So the good thing is I'm already this knowledgeable, but in Europe I don't have that many opportunities. So if I go to Asia, I can And I'm not joking about this. I could literally like date 20 women, or have a date with 20 women per day, and I could like filter out who's good for me, who isn't, and who am I good for. And in Europe, it's like you can, as a guy like me, you can be lucky like if somebody wants to go out with you, whereas in Asia they're literally like begging to go out with you. And what's interesting thing is that when people are like, especially women, like, well then just go to Asia. Well, maybe there's other things also than just, doing that. Maybe, the spiritual camping is something that's going to happen, and people come visit me from all over the world doing that. There's a lot of like pissiness about it from women talking about this. And I think it, because it hits home, I think, to also a hyper awareness of why are men talking about it like this, because uh yeah. And of course there's also the no loss opinion. I would say, like, you can give an opinion and be very hurtful, uh and the woman that is giving that opinion, she has literally nothing to lose because she's not thinking of dating you anyway, no matter how nice or how not nice you are. So she can say anything she wants, basically. And a lot of that's something else that's really weird to me. A lot of people are not in their heart energy. Like, so many people are not in their heart energy, and they're just hurtful to people they don't know. It's really bizarre. Yeah. Um, for example, on Facebook, I've not been on Facebook. I've not been on Facebook for many years. Maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 years. I don't know how many. Maybe 10 years, maybe more. And I don't watch television. So, and then I registered on Facebook because I knew that there is groups in there that allow me to search for real estate. That's the reason why I went back to Facebook. And then then I saw some other groups. So I registered in those groups, and then I posted something, even like a spiritual dating group or something. And real estate groups and spiritual groups and travel groups, van life groups. And I connected with some of these people, and I literally had to remove 10 or 15 of those contacts because they were just brutally toxic, and they were very opinionated and insulting, and they felt insulted about posts I put out that weren't even meant for them. And they was like, this is the most unspiritual thing that I've ever read. And I'm like, it's what the fuck? It's just relax. A lot of people take so many things personally. It's absolutely amazing. Like, when I read something, I'm like, okay, that's what they're going through right now. But who am I to judge? Like, yeah. And people just don't want to. Everyone wants to have everything sugar coated. Like, there's a guy who I saw that he has absolutely zero chance. The way he has like a profile, dating profile, and on his dating profile he says, "I'm the son of one of the most famous cricketers, and I'm the brother of a successful bodybuilder." And I'm like, what are you saying here? That the woman who matches you should be dating your brother or your dad? And I'm like, no, 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 no. This is you gotta be super conscious of, like, on these dating profiles, how you present yourself, because women are brutal in sorting you out, especially in Western countries. So, and he got really pissy, and it was like, and defensive. I was like, maybe I'm right. And yeah, I think a lot of men are a little bit oblivious to how things changed, and so they wonder why they don't have success with women. I think it's because it's much, 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 much harder for them to find someone, unless they're top tier, and and that's just a fact. That's a statistical fact, and And I'm not a believer, by the way, that you can be 100% happy by not having any sexual success or intimate success or relationship success whatsoever. So I don't believe, for example, that let's say you're a woman or a man, it doesn't matter, and you have absolutely zero success with the opposite sex. I think you can do as much spiritual work on yourself as you want. I don't think you can be 100% happy because this is one of the things that I explain is that uh, the 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 libido power in your sacral chakra, the joy and sexuality, it's a constantly, it's your vitality, it's how your energy field is built. It's like a energetic pyramid, and if you constantly suppress it and neglect it, your energy system is not working fully. And I'm hyper certain about this, like I'm 100% certain about this. And a lot of people uh, don't know this or don't understand it. And people who naturally have success, they don't they don't need they don't need to understand this because they experience it without having to understand it. And then there's people who go like the opposite, where like I don't have enough success, so I'm just gonna be spiritual, but they're not truly happy. So I think it's really important to figure this out and see how you can bring joy and sexuality in some form into your life, so it makes you content. And I explained this also in a different situation. Like, I was 5 years without intimacy. I was 5 years without a woman. I was 5 years without a relationship. And then when I was in Alicante, I was like, uh, I booked myself a Colombian sugar babe. And the funny thing is, we hit it off perfectly. It was like the best date that I've ever had. She found me super attractive. I found her super attractive. Energetically, it was just perfect. We had a good chakra alignment. We had the same interests. She had two masters degrees. I have one master's degree, and it felt like two people on the same level are meeting, and they have the same desire and same intention. And she had the same, pretty much the same experiences, also partially as me, and it was a super night. It was absolutely fantastic. And I could have been judgmental. I could have been, saying I don't do something like that and so forth. But people that know me said, like, the days and weeks after, I was in a really, 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 really good mood. And just before, I was kind of like down and almost depressed. So I think when you learn to manage this and understand it, you can literally design. I don't want to say constant happiness, but you can, like, be really, like I said, I have many days where I feel 9 out of 10, and how many people are there that can say that from their life? Like, I know so many people who are less than that, and feel like, some people, want to commit suicide. Some people like feel depressed. Some people feel anxious. Some people feel like burnout. I don't have any of that. I don't have any depression, no burnout, no anxiety, none of that stuff. And it's actually exactly the opposite. So the only thing I think that would make sense for me now is either do something like the awakening camp, where I can um where I can, like, live through a lot of these elements that I like making the music, the podcast, the tantra, and meeting people that vibe similarly, all, or just travel and make different kind of experiences. Yeah. And the thing is also, there's something also interesting, is that a lot of a lot of people that listen to this, they think I have some kind of obligation to how they see life and what they do. For example, also eating vegan, vegetarian, or omnivore or pescatarian. There's so many people who have this dogmatic idea of how you should be eating, what you should be doing, what you should be thinking. It's crazy. It's absolutely fucking crazy. And sometimes everything feels like an open air asylum rather than, just let people be. And unless they really, really do like bad stuff that hurts other people, like otherwise it's. And yeah, so I wanted to communicate that a little bit. I think it's getting late, and I'm really gonna enjoy sleep tonight because I slept really bad yesterday. Because I need to sleep in the city as I was having a car repaired today, and now it's repaired. I'm super happy. The people were super nice, and I really had a good day. Very tiresome, but I had a good day. So I wish you also a good day. This video was more about me rather than giving out tips and stuff. But I wanted to put out a video that explains who am I and where do I come from and why am I doing what I'm doing and where is it going more or less. And maybe somebody out there is like, hey, I click with that. Let's connect or not. And I'm always open for tantric sessions. I do have also videos from some sessions, with permission, of course. and and if somebody wants to see those, maybe I'll upload a few of them here. And I remember I uploaded one video once, and a woman from Prague, she saw that, and she said like, this is exactly what I need. And then we met, and it was absolutely amazing. She stayed even with me for a week because she visited me, and she was also into Eckhart Tolle and Muji, and it was definitely more than a session. We were intimate. We had like a little bit more than, it was like friendship plus, but really intense, and was really, really good. Really enjoyed it. And we did that 3 or 4 times. And what I really liked is we had a couple of sessions where with 2 women at the same time, and so she was sometimes like, and she wasn't jealous at all. She was just more like loving, open to it. It was a really, really great experience. I mean, that would be the absolute best woman in my life if she didn't have this kind of pure jealousy. But I ask myself sometimes, what if I was extremely in love? Would then I be like, give all of that up? I don't know. Who knows?